Good morning and welcome to the basketball show, the Olympic and Stinger edition today. I'm your host, Paul Sir. Happy to be joined by our producer, Donovan Paulson, this weekend. Donovan, thanks so much for jumping in here.
No problem, Paul. No problem at all. I was already here this morning, so why not, extend my stay a little bit.
Hang out with the cool guys. And one of the other cool guys, of course, is Brian Swain. Brian, good morning.
Paul, I haven't been cool in 30 years.
Well, you've brought the cool back today. Taking care of business. Music today is going to deal with Olympic themes, winning and losing. So it's just been such a dynamic time, certainly as it relates to basketball in Canada, and we're going to dive deep into that today. We're also going to talk a great deal about the Stingers. Our second and third segments today are going to be focusing on the Stingers and the CEBL playoffs that are upon us now. Before we get going, we're going to jump first to our poll question. Brian.
Yes, of course, it being the everyone's got the Olympic spirit, Olympic fever, and the Canadians men's team is we'll talk about, I'm sure, later, Paul. They're off to a terrific start, 3-0 so far. They won their pool, so they're off, have clinched a berth now in the quarterfinal round. So we're asking on our Twitter page at basketball_show, where will Canada finish in the men's Olympic basketball tournament? 4 options there. You can say gold, silver, bronze, or they won't win a medal. So gold, silver, bronze, or no medal. Again, at basketball_show on Twitter.
And we welcome your texts as well. If you have any comments, observations, questions regarding the Olympics, the Stingers, anything at all relating to basketball, you can text us at 833-401-1440. We also will be producing a podcast after the show's over. You can listen to that on the Stingray Podcast Network or however you listen to your podcasts. And you can always listen to our show live online at sports1440.ca. Our guest today, a great lineup, interesting lineup. We have the CEBL commissioner, Mike Morreale, who has been the driving force, one of the driving forces, but I think the most significant driving force behind the CEBL in its 6 seasons. As we wrap up season number 6, Mike has been the guy who has been just out there and hustling and working hard, and he brings a tremendous amount of professional experience, sports experience to his role, and he is a tireless worker. We're also going to be talking to coach and GM Jordan Baker about the matchup tomorrow against the Calgary Surge down at Expo in Hall D at 6 p.m. And then we're going to have a conversation with Brody Clark. Brody has been in Edmonton for 10 years. He came here from Ontario, starred for the University of Alberta Golden Bears, had a tremendous career there, battled through injuries, great career overseas, and has been with the Stingers as well since day one. And Brody has taken a job back in Toronto. He's going back to his home. And when the CEBL season is over, we're going to be waving goodbye to Brody, and he'll be looking in his rearview mirror at us. And he's had such an impact on our basketball community and our community in general. So here we are, guys, the Olympics. And it has been an interesting one. I'm going to start with the 3x3 women. The 3x3 women just beat Azerbaijan 21-19. They had a tough day yesterday. 2 losses, one to the U.S., second one to Spain, both in overtime, both on 2-point shots. I'll tell you, Brian, 3x3, it's the piranha of basketball. There is nothing left when the game's over. It is just such a challenging, cruel game. And we saw how cruel it could be with the losses that the Canadian women had yesterday.
Yeah, I've talked about it before, Paul, is that it's over so quickly. Again, you compare it to basketball or any sport, really, any team sport where you have a full game. This is like the equivalent of 1 quarter, more or less, right? And your dreams can go up in smoke. Your dreams can come true in an instant. And thank goodness the girls won this morning. Just waiting for the updates here from the Olympic website. We don't have the time yet for their play-in game this afternoon, but it looks like it will be either 1:30 or 2 o'clock our time. We don't know their opponent yet either. So but that's also 3x3, right? I mean, there's no time to breathe. Half an hour ago they didn't know if they'd be playing on. And now they got to go and play for their lives again in about 3 or 4 hours here. So it's very unique there, and I'm sure it presents different kind of mental challenges in terms of focus, and I think maximizing your rest and energy and all those factors too that maybe don't apply to the same degree in other sports.
Totally agree with that. Having been involved with 3x3 so long and just getting used to the culture, the thinking, and what you're talking about, Brian, in terms of what 3x3 is all about. It is a completely different basketball game. It's still shooting a basketball, a different basketball. And one of the interesting things about the basketball, just as a real quick tangent, for those who don't know what a 3x3 basketball is, it is the size of a women's basketball, size 6 basketball with grooves in it because it's supposed to be played outdoors, which it is in the Olympics, but it's the weight of a men's basketball. So I really feel for the women. Not only do they have to get used to this different grip, but they're playing with a heavier basketball, and it takes a while to adapt, and adapt they have. The Canadian women, let's touch on that. They came out gangbusters. First 2 games, rolled Australia, rolled China. Really looked like this was, that they potentially could dominate. But, the discussions I've had was this is a marathon week. It's an unusual week even for 3x3. People say, well, what's the big deal? You play a 10-minute game once a day for the first 2 days. What's the big deal? Play 3x3, then you'll know what the big deal is, both emotionally, as you were talking about, Brian, but also physically. But then day 3 hits, and now you're into 2 games. And in day 3, they played Germany, and Germany's very good. And they, over the last year, have improved more than any of the women's teams that I've seen. They're very, very good. And they beat the Canadians. And quite honestly, they beat the Canadians. Not only did they come out hot, but the Canadians came back and actually went ahead, but Germany pulled away and won 19-15. But then Canadians came back, won their night game, and I'm trying to remember who that was against on the second of the back-to-back with Germany. Oh, France. They beat France. They beat France, the home team. And I'll tell you what, France came into the Paris Games on their home court with high expectations. The French have invested a lot of money and human resources into building their program, and they have just performed so poorly. And that I'm hoping at some point in the future we can debrief and have a conversation about what 3x3 is all about. But anyway, and then yesterday, USA, which really struggled out of the gate, lost, I believe, their first 3, and now they've won 3 in a row, beat Canada on a buzzer beater, as I mentioned earlier, Brian, and then come back against Spain, same thing, lose on a buzzer beater to Spain. Spain's a good team. They've beaten Canada in the Olympic qualifying process. They're a good basketball team. So now the Canadians go into the is it called the play-in round?
They are in the play-in round, yeah.
Yep. And the way it works, because the basketball structure for 3x3 is different than 5-on-5. 5-on-5 has 12 teams. 3x3 has 8, and you play a full round robin to get to your playoff position. The top 2 teams, and I don't know if that's determined yet. I think Germany's at the top, but it's either going to be Australia or Spain for number 2, right?
Germany has clinched one of the 2 byes through to the semifinals. The other one will be either go to Spain or Australia. They still have to play it today. Canada right now is looking at likely the 4th or 5th seed, which could mean, it'll be a rematch whoever they play, but it could mean the Americans again.
Yep. And the American team's interesting. I felt that was more Canada's to lose than the Americans to win, but they did find a way to win, and you could see they're getting their confidence that they didn't have early on. And that's another part of 3x3 that's different, especially for the American team, because they throw a team together and come play, where the other teams, like I was mentioning about France, I mean, this team plays together year-round. and they're training year round. Same with Germany. They're not playing 5-on-5, then 3x3. They're just focusing on 3x3. Do you have any reflections, Brian, yourself about what you've witnessed? And you're such a big Canadian basketball fan. I guess what I'd be looking for are your comments from a Canadian fan's point of view about what you've observed in 3x3.
I think I'll just say this from a casual fan's perspective. I think anyone who is tuned in, this has been, I think the sport speaks for itself in terms of its competitive entertainment value. The drama in these games, though, has been incredible. And then you factor in the fact that, this is once every 4 years and everyone's playing for their country, and that, ramps it up 100 times over. But, this is kind of really, these Olympic Games have showcased what the 3x3 discipline is in terms of, you've had everything. You've had these games like Canada playing 2 overtime games back to back. I mean, this has just really showcased how incredibly dramatic and exciting the discipline can be. Speaking from Canada's perspective, yesterday was just a couple of heartbreakers, right? And either one of those goes their way, they could have ended up with the number 1 seed today. So it's a razor thin line. I would caution anyone to not get too discouraged yet. They're 3 wins from the podium, and they can very easily roll those 3 wins off, no problem. So, but yeah, Paul, just from the fans' perspective, I think this was a great introduction to anyone who's had a chance to tune in, and that's often what the Olympics are about. Unfortunately, not necessarily unfortunately, but there are so many sports during the Olympics that you kind of have to seek something out to see it. A lot of stuff can get lost in the shuffle, because there's so many sports when this is their once every 4 years platform. And the big ones, the basketball, the athletics, swimming, tennis, that will get its spotlight on the channels, gymnastics. But you'll have to seek out events like 3x3. But I think anyone who is definitely going to be a fan now.
Well, I think so too. And this really is, this is the first time that they've really had the full opportunity to showcase the sport in an Olympic environment, because in Japan, nobody could come to the games like in 2021. So coming through the COVID period, now you've had the opportunity to watch it, and you can see what a setting it is. I wanted to ask you
about that, Paul. What did you think? I thought the venue is just beautiful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody that came to our Hoop City 3x3 saw a miniature version of that. That's what I've seen last year when I was in Vienna for the World Cup. It was a similar environment, but this was Vienna times 2 in terms of the number of people and the way the venue's set up, the spectacle that it creates. You can really get a sense for what we're striving to build here in Edmonton, and why we're way ahead of everybody right now in North America, because we have the Magic Sky, the big canopy. We had a miniature version of the stadium feel, but that's what makes this such an event. Is you create this venue that didn't exist before, and it's just so filled with drama and effects, and the production values are extremely good. So it is the first time, and I'm so excited that people have had an opportunity to see 3x3 in its most fulsome way. And of course, the drama that we as Canadians are looking at is that, that these women from Edmonton, from Alberta, have a chance to medal. And now, you can see this is a slugfest. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And on the men's side, and I don't want to leave the men's side out, even though there's no Canadian content, you really need to watch men's 3x3. I mean, it's physical. People who watch it for the first time cannot believe how physical this sport is, and how quick, as you were saying about Brian. The cardio needs in 3x3 are so different. It really is a combination of rugby, soccer, hockey, and basketball, all kind of rolled into one. So, but today, as the show goes on, when we find out what the matchup is for the Canadian women today, having to play in the play-in round to stay alive. Now it's one and done. We will certainly share that information with you. We're going to take a break right now, and then we're going to get back. We're going to come back and talk CEBL and Edmonton Stingers with the commissioner of the CEBL, Mike Morreale. Thanks so much for spending your Saturday morning with us today. Grab a cup of coffee, come on, sit down. We'll get Mike on the phone and have a great conversation. You're listening to The Basketball Show on Sports 1440. Welcome back to The Basketball Show. I'm your host, Paul Sir, along with Donovan and Brian, and we are pleased to bring in the commissioner of the CEBL, the Canadian Elite Basketball League, Mike Morreale. Mike, good morning. I guess good afternoon where you are, but thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, my pleasure, guys. Happy to be on.
Well, okay, Mike, season number 6 in the books, regular season. Playoffs are underway. Last night, Calgary in an interesting target time. I don't know if it was who was more determined to win or who was trying to find a way not to win in that ending. It was quite something, I thought. And what were your reflections on the playoff game last night?
Yeah, I was in town, so I was in Scarborough to watch that game, and certainly even that affair looked like Scarborough had that in control in the first half, and then Ottawa just came back and
with a vengeance. Wow,
with a vengeance, and put on a show in a tough environment to play, and then follow that up with again a game that was looked in hand for Calgary's perspective for most of the game, and then that target time does crazy things to you. I mean, it does. It puts a lot of pressure on everyone on the court, including the coaches, just because of the urgency of reaching that target score. So it was one of our CBL finishes, one I haven't really seen before. A lot of turnover score. It was something else.
There was something similar to it, Mike, last week when the Stingers played the same Winnipeg Sea Bear team, but it wasn't around the turnovers. It was more around missed shots down the stretch. But Winnipeg, Coach Taylor there, I mean, he doesn't let quit enter into the Sea Bear vocabulary. They were out of it as well against the Stingers. It would have seen if you looked at the scoreboard, and going into target time, the Stingers had a sizable lead. But to your point, what I've noticed is in target time, the mental part of the game is, are you getting your team to play to win or play not to lose? And that puts so much of a different kind of pressure on the players and the coaches in terms of their strategy and execution, because if you play not to lose, you're generally kind of angling towards losing.
Right. It's really important, at least from my position, being an outsider looking in, is to maintain the same flow of the game that you had before. But inevitably, that doesn't happen. Things just kind of wrench up, and people get excited. And I've always said the worst place to be is the leading team with 3 points to go, and the trailing team just hovering around behind, because we see it often. Go down, try the 3, big rebound, transition, score. Go down, try the 3, big rebound, transition, score. Next it's a tie game. And it really is not just the target time, it's that lead up to target time. Where do you want to be entering target time? If you're up, are you fouling right away? How many fouls do you have to give? How many video challenges are remaining? And we just added a new wrinkle for your fans that starting in the playoffs this year, the coaches do get an additional challenge in target time, and it includes the ability to challenge a foul. So We didn't see it last night. Mike Taylor used it on, I think, a 3-point review, so he would have used that challenge up. But, that plays into the head of the coaches too. When am I going to use it? In what situation? Can I afford to wait? So it's, I think our coaches, I read an article, Vic Razzo, coach of Niagara the other day, who just said it's like everything you've learned, throw it out the window. And you got to relearn what happens in target time. And it makes you a better coach. It's certainly going to put you in situations you've never been in before.
100%. And I'm talking to the commissioner of the CEBL, Mike Morreale, here on the Basketball Show. Okay, Mike, season 6, as I mentioned in the introductory remarks, is in the books. Give me your reflections. Let's go to 30,000 feet. What are your reflections on season number 6?
Well, this was the first year in a long, long time ever that we had that consistency with the same number of teams, the same markets year over year. So what we were able to see was just that, that fandom increase from a local market point of view, whereas, fans initially in the first couple of years come and just check it out, and then slowly they've become fans. And they've become supporters, and it's become, obviously, the growth of our game, holistically in this country is huge. But, from market to market, we're seeing increases in number of tickets, in revenue, in viewership, in every metric that you would account for success, and talent on the court. continues to get better. So I've been really impressed with the stuff that I can't control, which is the basketball stuff. And that has really turned into, success at the gate and beyond.
I build on your comments a little bit, Mike. I have the privilege of doing the color and have every season for the Stingers. And one of the things I noticed, and I think it culminated in last weekend's game against Winnipeg, was it wasn't just a full house. It was the mezzanine was 3 deep all the way around the court. And the excitement, the energy, the buy-in, to me, it was like, all right, this has really arrived in Edmonton. And I'll just address Edmonton specifically. It's a great sports market. We've bought in the city pretty well from the beginning. I think we were one of the better franchises out of the gate. But now to see it continue to solidify, that would be the term I would use locally, as a real integral, valued, prized part of our local sports community. That's what's exciting for me to see, is like that this means it's here to stay. It's no longer just curiosity. There are still curious people coming, Mike, but it's the regular fans that are just there all the time, the number of jerseys, the number of shirts, hats, etc. It really, and I know you see that in other markets as well.
I completely agree. I think you've hit it on the head. In Edmonton, you're correct. It's been a market that's been, really strong from the beginning and continues to grow exponentially. And I think that's what we're seeing in our other markets. I run into people that have never been to a game, but they know what the CBL is. They've watched us on TSN. They've seen us in other ways. That didn't happen 2-3 years ago. I had to explain myself, but it's becoming more commonplace that they understand who we are, they're aware of who we are, they're familiar with the success of our league, and all of that. And certainly that's from a fan point of view. From a media point of view, we're seeing the same thing. More, mainstream media picking us up, more players recognizing who we are and coming here because they've seen other similar players come here. So that really is stuff that is hard to do. If you were starting a brand new league, and we've been very fortunate that, based on our fundamentals, I think we've been very strong in who we are and what we do. And we recognize that from day one. We're not the NBA, but we recognize who we are. We're the best basketball played outside of it. And we cater to a different community across the country, and it's really working. So I think you're right. All those building blocks are that strong foundation is allowing us to grow.
Mike, next year you're expanding. Talk about what next year looks like, because I know one of the challenges with the CEBL is the time of year. It's a great time of year because it's a gap in basketball. But on the flip side, what's a challenge about it is how do you grow revenues? So you've made the decision as a league to expand the number of regular season games. Talk about what went into making that decision.
Yeah, when we play is a bit of our secret sauce because of what you said. It affords us and allows us access to some of the best players, certainly in Canada and the world. And they're all here for one singular reason for the most part. They're here to get better, get a better contract, get a look, go to the NBA, the G League, better deals in Europe. So they know we've created a pathway for that to happen. So we're very, very fortunate that the players come here are very good stand-up character guys that really want to work hard and improve their skills and move on. And, we also know that they have other jobs for the other 8 months of the year or 7 months of the year, and those are the limitations. So, we built our salary structure and our per-game salary and the way we work with our transactions, a suspended list, and allowing people, the NBA Summer League, for players to have some movement here and there. Some teams take a one approach to fielding a team, which is get me the best talent, and I know some guys may leave, but I'll figure that out as it comes. Or they'll do what maybe Edmonton has done very consistently, is give me a solid group of players that play as a team, and I'm going to keep them together for those 20 games. So the league has grown to a point where it's in a place where extra games really help the bottom line and really help in the longevity of where we're going. We know we're still limited by the time in which we play, we're going to go back basically to 2019, which is an early May start and a third week of August finish. So we're adding about 3 weeks in total. We understand that the coaches and GMs are going to have their hands full at the beginning and at the end, but we also know that it's necessary for the league to continue to thrive, because the longer you're in market and the more games you play and the more fans that come and the more merch you sell and the more broadcasts you have and the more national partners, the more content you have, the more value you can create. And if we can create more value, it means we can expand and add players and do things that we want to do, that we should be able to do. And it's just moving from one stage of our business cycle to another. And that's come from being a single entity to start and now having 6 owners across 10 teams and their investments locally. You know, we see that, the uptick in those privately owned markets, and my job is to find private owners for the remaining 4 or 5 teams. But all that being said, they're investing, those private owners are investing in the game, and we need a return on some investment, and we know our fans want more, but we hear it all the time. So I think this is us taking our first step. Players are going to get a 20% pay increase because we're playing 20% more games. So, you know, the owners are going to be happy, the fans are going to be happy, broadcast, etc. It's going to be a little bit more work on the basketball side, but I think it's going to create a bigger, better CBL.
It's going to be interesting because you identified so well, Mike, what the challenges will be, the realistic challenges in terms of keeping personnel. And but on the flip side, I think you've hit it right. You guys know better than anyone. And like you're talking about owners in local markets, this is real money coming out of real hardworking people's pockets. And so finding ways to generate more revenue is part of the fact that this is CEBL, this is basketball, it's a business. And it's an important business to keep growing. I really hope, Mike, at some point, and it might be in the fall, I'd love to do an hour with yourself and maybe 1 or 2 other folks and talk about the future of professional basketball in Canada, because I'm dying to ask you, this isn't the right time, but I'm dying to ask you some questions about, are we ever going to have the CEBL say, you know what, guys, we're going to go to the traditional basketball season. We're going to play 45 games and 5-game playoffs. Is there an economic way forward that could be successful in Canada? But here, the bottom line for me, Mike, is I am grateful for Richard Petko and the fact that he's invested his money for yourself and your team, for the time, energy, and vision that you have put into making this a true, solid, professional national league for the sport of basketball. And I always use the example, the roadside is littered with white crosses of minor league basketball attempts. And so you guys have done a great job, Mike. Can't thank you enough, and really excited about the playoffs.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. Paul, you've been a great supporter. You understand the bigger landscape of basketball in this country. I think you will see some changes to what we're doing. You'll probably, not in 25. We have our championship weekend set for 2025 in Winnipeg. It's going to be incredible. The province and the city has made a massive contribution, and we're going to turn that into a massive celebration, into arguably, the place that supports us with the most fans. And so we're excited about that. But beyond that, I think you're going to see us move in a bit of a different direction, not in terms of the time in which we play, but maybe how we operate the playoffs. Because to my earlier point, I think fans want to see some playoff games or more playoff games in market. They want to see a trophy being lifted in market. Our owners certainly would enjoy that. We have a really good asset we've created in our championship week, and what can we do with that? Maybe we can relocate that somewhere else within the season and continue to build out that as well. And those are the things we're looking at right now. So that's, 2026. But and then we'll evaluate the number of games. We'll see what it's like, or how long it takes us to move on from 24 to 26 or 28 if we want to, or what other changes would be made. And then when you hit a critical mass, I think that's when you start looking at, can we directly compete with the typical European regular season? There are a lot of things that make that difficult.
Absolutely.
I think we're enjoying where we are now, and with our growth that's happening and expansion on the horizon, everything coming together. I think we can just improve upon when we play in a more profound way for everyone, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah, and Mike, I have no doubt that you're working on it, believe me. And one comment, I think the Winnipeg event next year is going to be phenomenal. I am a huge fan of the Winnipeg ownership group. What they've done in that city, the way they've done it is just very impressive, along with Edmonton, and where my loyalties lie. To me, they're just absolutely remarkable. The crowd numbers that they get, and they're legit numbers. I mean, when you look in that arena, that's a lot of bodies, and there's no padding. There's no padding of the numbers that they don't need to. They just do a phenomenal job. So that's very exciting. Mike Morreale, Commissioner of the CEBL, thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks once again for all your efforts and your team's efforts to bring this great basketball to our city and our nation. And really excited about the playoffs.
Me too. Thanks so much, guys. My pleasure, and let's see what happens tomorrow.
That's right. Go Stingers. All right. Thanks, Mike. Mike Morreale, Commissioner, CEBL, joining us on the Basketball Show. When we come back, we're going to continue talking Stingers with head coach GM Jordan Baker, and we're going to have a bit of a farewell conversation with Brody Clark here on the Basketball Show on Sports 1440. Welcome back to the Basketball Show. I'm your host, Paul Sir, along with Donovan and Brian on this beautiful Saturday morning, this beautiful Saturday Olympic and CEBL morning. And I'm pleased to welcome in the head coach and GM of the Edmonton Stingers, Jordan Baker. Jordan, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, Jordan, the die is cast. The matchup is set. You're playing Calgary. The game last night in Target Time had an eerie feeling somewhat similar to last Monday's game against the same Winnipeg Sea Bears, who found a way to claw their way back into it. Stingers with a great victory on a nice Hornsby tip-in. So now you're playing Calgary. First two games, Stingers dominated. Second two games, Surge dominated. What are your thoughts as you prepare your team for the matchup tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. Like, they beat our butts the last couple times we saw them, so we've got some unfinished business there, and it's a great opportunity for us to, give our fans at home one last great show.
Well, and you guys always put on a great show, and I would imagine we're going to have a crowd like we did in the last game against Winnipeg, where you're literally, there's not an empty seat, and you're 3 to 10 deep on the mezzanine. So it's going to be rocking tomorrow. What's the week been like in terms of preparation for this eventual playoff game?
Yeah, guys have been focused. It's challenging, but also a good thing when you don't know who your opponent is necessarily. So we've been able to work on a lot of our defensive concepts, trying to refine some things, really focusing on what's going on the Stinger side. And then, today and tomorrow we'll dial in a little bit more on Calgary specifically, how we want to try to take certain things away. What are some key things we want to, focus on over the course of the next few days and heading into Sunday. So, it's been a nice balance, and guys, I think, are itching to play, certainly.
I can imagine the competitive nature of your players and having an opportunity to get a shot at a team that really did play extremely well in the last couple of games. It's got to be really exciting for them. Injuries. Mike Nuga missed the last game, had a bad ankle injury. Will he be available for this game?
That's what the plan is right now. He's still got to get a couple of practices in under his belt, but he was a full participant yesterday, so we're hoping things continue to trend in the right direction because he is, an important piece for us.
Absolutely. And Jordan, are there any other injuries of note, or is the team, other than Mike's ankle, pretty healthy?
Yeah, we're healthy. Knock on wood. We're in a good spot, and we've been able to, rotate guys in and out of the lineup to make sure we've been fresh all year long. So we're gonna, head into the playoffs here at full strength.
That's great. I mean, that is the ideal for any coach, to have his whole team ready to go and go meet the challenge. So any final thoughts, or any thoughts that you would share about this season? I mean, Jordan, you've been involved since day one with the Stingers, with the CEBL, first 4 seasons as a player who had an outstanding career transitioning over into the coach and GM role. Any reflections on this season? And I guess I'll ask a specific question. What's the league like today compared to when you started in 2019?
Well, I mean, there's no comparison. Just the level of organization and professionalism has grown so much just because they've been, the CBL has been in the Edmonton market now for 6 years. So we've got such a great fan base and a great following that, I know our players feel supported. And then, you combine that with the purchase of the team from the Stingers Entertainment Group. Now all of a sudden housing situations are better. The transportation situations are better. We're more familiar with, what players need in order to feel comfortable over the course of the summer. And, our big goal is always how do we retain key guys summer after summer? And I think, our ownership group has done a great job of making sure that's been a priority for us. And it makes my job easier. I just get to coach the team, and guys aren't dealing with, leaks in their apartment or, having to catch LRT or catch rides from somebody. Guys are everything is organized and players feel taken care of. And, I know certainly there's a few guys on the team that feel like Edmonton is their second home. And, we've kept Adika here for 6 years, and now he's sticking around as the head coach at Nate. So I think that's credit to the league and also our organization to, make sure that players want to come back, have a great experience over the course of the summer, and that's only going to help us moving forward as we, look to build a team in 2025.
Well, Jordan, it's been an absolute amazing transformation for the league, and it's been great to watch yourself make that transition as well from player to coach. The success that your team had on the court this year and the excitement that's being generated as we head into the playoffs. Best of luck tomorrow night. Real excited for you guys to go out there and get after the Surge, and really hoping that the following week you'll be heading down to Montreal and battling for a CEBL championship.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Jordan Baker, head coach, GM of the Edmonton Stingers. They get ready. They tip off tomorrow down at Hall D in the Expo Center at 6 p.m. It'll be a TSN broadcast game. I think it's sold out, but I would say if you have any interest, and if you don't have interest and you're a basketball fan, I'm surprised, but if you have any interest in getting to the game, make sure that you check into getting tickets today as soon as possible for the Edmonton Stingers squaring off against the Calgary Surge. Surge have been up and down, Brian, this year. And Donovan, our producer's not having luck right now getting in touch with Brody Clark, so he's trying right now. So, Brian, the CEBL, it's a real success story, no doubt about it. And I think what's especially gratifying is it's a real success story in Edmonton.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, Paul. As you were mentioning, you're part of the broadcast there with our good friend Mark Majot was helping you out. I know on Monday night, and I was away, so I wasn't at the game or anything. I asked Mark. I saw when I logged online and saw that the attendance was 5,300. And you, as you mentioned, sometimes you can pad these numbers. There's comp tickets, there's giveaways, there's people that may have sold tickets but didn't show up. And I just texted Mark and I said, is there really 5,300 people there? And he sent me a picture from your vantage point at the broadcast booth, and it's absolutely incredible scene. Like from where you guys are sitting across, you can just see like this wall of people from one side of the court to the other. Absolutely unbelievable. So it was, I would say, well, you can speak for it, but it looked like a pretty legit crowd to me.
Well, I just hope the fire marshal isn't listening, because I think that exceeds what.
Well, that's what I thought. I don't know. I think sometimes they just kind of plug these numbers in, but whatever the capacity was there, was that plus one?
It was that's 100% accurate, whether it was 4,800 or 4,300 or 5,300. Whatever it is, it was. And like you said, in terms of capacity, but beyond the capacity was the atmosphere. This was like a college basketball game in the States. The fans were engaged in everything that was going on the court. Stingers were up big, really were rolling out of the gate. They had a grueling schedule That's something I meant to ask Mike Moriali about was how are they going to handle scheduling going forward?
Well, I mean, they've had an alternating, grueling schedule / extended vacations.
Well, exactly. 6 games in 11 days, then 11 days off. That's a tough way to manage. But again, you have to give a lot of grace to the organizers because they, like in the Expo Center, you've got K-Days, you've got concert, you got all this stuff that you got to build around. And I would rather have 6 games in 11 days than not have a league. So we'll live with that. But the atmosphere was superb. The excitement, the electricity was just on fire. And here's what I love about it. It's about the basketball. Like the on-court entertainment is great. The dancers, Kale, the on-court announcer, phenomenal. They do a phenomenal job. Jacob Skeppel on the mic, calling the games. Just a great atmosphere and show. DJ is fantastic. But it was the basketball that had people electrified. And I mentioned the Stingers were up big. Winnipeg kept fighting back. Then all of a sudden it came down to the last shot, literally. And that's target time at its best. Like I'm not a target time guy, but I'm a target time tolerator that I accept the fact that it's part of this. And that's at its best when you come down to a last second shot that determines an outcome.
The target, I'm fascinated. I'm still fascinated by the target time thing, and I think, and Mike touched on it too. That game between Winnipeg and Calgary last night was kind of whether you're pro or anti-target time. Last night epitomized it for you either way.
100%, yeah, 100%. Like it was really exciting to have it come down, even though the nerves that led to turnover, make to win the game was exciting. It was very dynamic, and so. I'm going to take a little jab at our good friends down south. Calgary's got a lot of work to do in their market to build this up properly. I don't know if it's the Wynn Sports Center, but the number of empty seats last night was distracting. And I think they need a new facility definitely, but something hasn't resonated in Calgary yet.
Well, I know, I don't think it was on the show. I think it was probably off air. We talked about this earlier. But, I mean, Calgary did have that game at the Saddle Dome when they had, I don't know what the actual number was, but it was definitely over 10,000.
Yeah, it was 11 or 12.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, whether that was just the sheer spectacle of going to see a game in the Saddle Dome, or if, obviously that was a big part of it, but you have 12,000 people there that are interested enough to go watch a professional basketball game in their city. And, how was not at least 10 to 20 to 30% of that crowd that you introduced the game to that night, how are you not able to convert them into wanting to come to see a game at the much more intimate, but still very atmospheric WinSpear Center?
100%. Very well said, Brian. And it's a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Like it's a playoff game to continue on. And Calgary has a huge basketball community, a huge basketball community. So like you said, but I equate it to what we were talking about with the early days of the Stingers in Edmonton, 2019. Like when Edmonton, and I think was it 2021 that they hosted, or 22 that they hosted the I want to say
2022, wasn't it?
I think it was 22 when they
championship.
They hosted the championship here.
Yeah,
place wasn't packed.
Yeah,
there were like 2,500 people there. It was a great atmosphere, but it takes time again to build that foundation of true fans and expand out.
Yeah.
And I think the advantage we've had in Edmonton with our ownership group, they've done a fantastic job of marketing the team, really building it into the community. So I think we've got something really, really special going on here. Again, folks, 6:00 tomorrow. If you can't make it down, tune it in on TSN. Chuck Swirsky and Joe Razzo will be doing the broadcast, and it'll be a great game to be at physically or to watch on TV in the midst of the Olympics. Unfortunately, we were not able to reach Brody this morning. We'll try again to get Brody on the program in the future. Brody, if you're listening, sorry about that. Maybe something came up. Maybe there was a technical issue. But Brody Clark, been a stalwart in Edmonton basketball for so long. Nothing but great things to say about Brody, and nothing but gratitude for what he's done in our community. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to Dave Oldham in Paris. He and his wife, Robin, are huge contributors to the basketball community in Edmonton and the surrounding area. And Dave is going to give us his reflections on what he and Robin have been watching in Paris, on the ground, 3x3, 5-on-5, etc. So stay tuned. We'll come back right after these messages on The Basketball Show on Sports 1440. Welcome back to The Basketball Show, Sports 1440. You know what? Why don't we just leave the friendly confines of Edmonton and let's go over to Paris, France, and talk with Dave Oldham. Dave, how you doing?
Hey, Paul, I'm great. How are you?
Doing great, man. This is fantastic to talk with you. You and your wonderful wife, Robin, are over in Paris taking in the Olympics. Let's start at 30,000 feet, Dave. What's it been like so far?
It's been spectacular. We've managed to catch multiple sports, and all the venues are full of energy, and people have been very friendly and helpful to us Canadians and helping us get around and sort things out. And we were able to get to 12 basketball games, believe it or not.
Oh my goodness!
The first 3 days we took in all the games. Wanted to make sure we saw our Canadian teams, and thought we might as well, try and see everyone play once. And then we've been in Paris the last few days and caught our women's rugby team win silver, and a day of men's golf and some beach volleyball, and we're just headed off to watch our senior men's Canadian volleyball team play tonight, actually. So it's been great. The kids have loved it. We met some friends here as well that are from the Edmonton area, and we've had a great time.
Other than that, you've just been sitting around sipping wine.
Yeah, just sipping wine and taking in the views of Paris. So, yeah, all in all, it's been a wonderful 10 days or so that we've been gone so far.
Dave, it's Brian. Awesome to hear from you. I'm sure this has been an amazing experience. It's incredible, the itinerary. You were just listing off all the events you've gone there. What's it been like? I've been curious getting around there. It's obviously Paris is just such a massive city, so many events, and it sounds like you've been kind of heading in a lot of different directions. How have you found just traveling?
The metro system here, I think, is considered to be one of the best in the world. Actually, a train goes by me as we speak. And the signage is awesome. The volunteers are incredible. I think we were talking to one volunteer, and she said they had 18,000 volunteers out for the games. And every metro station you're in, they have people to point you in the right direction. So we've been using the metro system here pretty well exclusively to get around, and we ended up getting an affordable place kind of on just the outskirts of the center of Paris. And I don't think we've probably taken more. The golf was probably the longest. It might have taken us an hour and a quarter to get to the venue. But other than that, we've been under an hour for everything, and it's been very smooth.
Dave, we're going to jump to basketball now. I'm going to start with, let's start with the lowest hanging fruit, which is the men's basketball team. Very impressive 3-0, looking extremely strong. I think a lot of people, I don't want to say surprised, because there were expectations that Canada would be good. But do you think that people thought that the Canadian team in the group of death, as it was called, would be this good this quickly?
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you, being in the arena for their first game against Greece, and it was a very pro-Greece crowd. I think with Giannis, obviously, and the Europeans that were in the building, they weren't against Canada, but they were very much pro-Giannis and therefore pro-Greece. I think they expected Greece to win. And when Canada kind of got off to a bit of a lead relatively early in the game, we were probably in the minority of fans that were loudly cheering for Canada. But I think it kind of took people by surprise. Obviously, our headliner players are well known. I think RJ Barrett has maybe surprised a little bit. I don't know how well he would be known, over here. Obviously, Shea and Jamal are probably the top two names that people around here are familiar with. But I would say, even late into the fourth quarter, as Greece started to make a bit of a run, I think they got to within 2 at one point. There was just this feeling in the building that it was almost an inevitability that people felt that Greece was going to kind of come back and win. And obviously Canada pulled that out and has been solid since, had very competitive games, which I think is going to benefit them as I haven't looked today, but I think they're likely playing France last time I looked, and or whoever they play this point forward. is obviously going to be great competition. So I think that group of death, as it was, will serve them well as they move forward. And I do think it's been a bit of a surprise here to the local crowd that they're doing as well as they are.
I'm talking to Dave Oldham. He's on the ground in Paris with his family here on the Basketball Show. Okay, Dave, let's jump a little bit of background about you, Dave, and Robin. Robin was an outstanding player, a provincial athlete, university player. Yourself, you and Robin have both coached at the high school level, the provincial team level, and you've coached in women's basketball very, very successfully and have had a lot of involvement and followed very closely the women's national team, which has been in Edmonton since 2013. I think if I could use a word, and tell me if this is an accurate word, people so far in the first two games have been a bit surprised that the Canadians haven't been able to be more potent on offense and be able to pull one of those two games out. Is that a fair way to describe the emotion that you sense about the first two games? And there's a lot of basketball left to be played. Don't get me wrong. I'm not applying any future expectations of doom on the team. But have you found that to be the case?
Yeah, you know what? They had a real downturn in their offensive output in the second quarter. We watched them play their first game against France, actually, which was quite the experience to be, in a building of 28,000 fans, and we're probably 4 of 200 people or so that were cheering for Canada.
Yes.
And they, we had a great first quarter, had a bit of a lead, and then just kind of the offensive tap turned off, and we couldn't buy a basket and turn the ball over, and kind of got down big. Like, I think we lost that quarter by 20 points or so, and kind of had a hard time and recovering from that. And I didn't see live the last game, but we obviously tried to watch as much as we could and caught the highlights. And there seems to be some inconsistency, as you know, in their kind of ability to get quality shots, and obviously then that reflects onto your scoring output. And I think that's been certainly disappointing for them. Having said that, they've played in a very, we talk about the men's pool of death. Well, this is a pretty potent pool as well that they're in. Two very tough teams so far. And Nigeria is certainly not going to be an easy test at all. We'll be at that game tomorrow afternoon, or Paris time tomorrow afternoon, to cheer on Canada one more time. And I think it's, you probably know over there, if we can win by 10 or so and, a few things go our way, they have a chance to move forward in the tournament. But it certainly has been a little tougher for them to generate consistent offense.
Okay, Dave, let's jump over to the 3x3 women. You know the Plouffe sisters very, very well. Also, Casey Bosch and Paige Crozen. They started out 2-0 looking dominant, but then, as we know, in a situation like this, Dave, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and teams are adjusting all the time. Tough day yesterday, two pointers to snatch victory away from the team, and then today they beat Azerbaijan, and now they're getting ready to go into their quarterfinal match, which is still up in the air who that's going to be against. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on watching 3x3 in that venue? I mean, the venue's spectacular. What's the atmosphere like there? What's the feeling like there?
Yeah, you know what? It's a tremendous venue. It's a tremendous, it's kind of a mix of 3-on-3 basketball and skateboarding and other events that kind of bring the urban culture together down at Concord. And it's a spectacular venue. And I think the field in the women's 3-on-3 is just super deep. I actually ran into Dave Walkenuk, who flew in just today to watch as well. And he and I had a quick conversation about it. And it's a very, very deep field. So it literally, as in the last 3 games, it comes down to one basket or, one turnover, and that didn't go our way yesterday. But if I know anything about the Plouffes and Casey and Paige, they're resilient. They've been through, the ups and downs of the post-secondary and professional life, for many, many years. And they're a very cohesive unit. And I think, getting the win today was obviously very important. And now we await kind of the games that are happening right now to see those results and see where they land. But, I think it's a deep group of 8 teams on the women's side. And 1 or 2 baskets on any given day can go either way. So they're going to be in the quarterfinals and give themselves a chance to move forward. And we're super excited for them.
Well, we are, and it's great to see. Brian and I were talking about this is really the first time the world's been able to see 3x3 basketball in its fullness. The 2021 Olympics were just such a disheveled mess because of COVID, and no fans were there. Like that was an introduction, but a much smaller introduction than to be able to see this kind of atmosphere and environment. And we take a lot of, I'll toot our horn for Hoop City here in Edmonton, but we really strived hard, and I think we were successful in creating a miniature version of what you're experiencing in Paris. But the potential for fan enjoyment and participation around this great, unique game is really off the charts, in my opinion. Would you agree with that summation, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. Relative to some of the other events, it's naturally a bit of a smaller venue. You're right on top of the players and part of the action. 3-on-3 is a fast pace. As you know, Paul, you were one of the leaders to bring it to Edmonton and promote it and get us on the circuit. It's kind of a very unique style of basketball that's really captured, I think, over the last few years, the world's interest. And I only see that growing, when you get exposure like this at a significant event like the Olympics. It only bodes well for how the sport's going to, proceed forward in the world, and who knows where it goes. But it certainly is an engaging, fan-friendly event.
Dave, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm talking to Dave Oldham. Dave is a city councilor in Spruce Grove, longtime provincial coach, high school coach, provincial coach or high school championships in the province. Dave and Robin, his wife, have just been stalwarts in the community, just pillars in terms of helping young people enjoy and love the game. But I'm going to put you on the spot, Dave. Medal predictions. Men, where are they going to finish?
Well, looking at trying to sift through all the permutations and combinations, I think our men make the final. And obviously the Americans are heavily favored in that game. But doing a little bit of reading and research and having watched the American men's team play as well, there's a different style for some of the European teams. Even the teams like Serbia that has a Jokic playing on it has largely then Euro League players that play, and they play just a bit of a different style. And I think Canada's style, being having largely NBA players, matches up well with the Americans. Obviously, if you went position for position, you'd have to give the edge to the Americans. But I think in any one game, a guy like Kelly Olynyk is a much better FIBA player, I think, than he might be in the NBA per se. He's a very strong NBA player, but I think in the FIBA game he has that potential to, stretch the defense and play that inside-outside game and defend a little bit. That's an example of someone who I think skill set might be able to mitigate a little bit of what the Americans bring. And I'm a Canadian, so I'm going to call him to give him a run and come down to the last 2 minutes in that one.
Good call. How about do you think the women, the 5-on-5 women's team has the ability to get into the playoffs? Are you confident that they're going to make they're going to beat Nigeria by enough?
I'm confident they're going to have a better performance and come out and get a win against Nigeria. There's a few things that I think are out of their control right now. And I think the most dominant team that we've seen in the Olympic basketball tournament between the men and women is probably the American women. So if I'm being honest, I think, if we end up third in our pool, there's a 50-50 chance we draw the Americans in that quarterfinal, which is a tough match, I think, for anyone.
Yes.
But I think it's a packed, again, like the 3-on-3 women's, there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of parity among teams. So if we can get a little more consistent offensive flow and get a little more confidence, I think, behind kind of over a 40-minute stretch, I like her depth. And I think we can compete with anyone, maybe outside of the Americans, in a one-game quarterfinal. So, get a win tomorrow against Nigeria and hope for the right things to happen to get in and avoid the Americans, I think, is the key to getting some success for them.
That's a good way to put it. Just avoid the Yanks and things look a lot better. All right, final prediction.
Yeah.
Yes or no? Will the 3x3 women's team, in your opinion, medal? I'm not saying which one.
Yes.
Will they medal? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to win the quarterfinal tonight, Paris time. I think they play at 9:30 tonight, so that'll be this afternoon for you. And then they're going to get themselves in the semifinal, and they're going to for sure win one of those matches, either the semi or the bronze. And I'm confident in them. They beat some of those top teams consistently over the course of time, and I think they're going to give themselves a great shot. I think their cohesiveness, they've been doing this as long as anyone. Their length, their skill set, and how they play together, they're gonna make a run.
Well stated, Dave. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. I love how you say "for you people." I don't think you said it quite like that. For you people, it'll be North American time. But since you're in Paris, you can enjoy it in Parisian time, Dave. And the rest of us will be sitting at home envying you. But I hope you, Robin, and the kid. Go ahead.
No, it's been great. We've enjoyed our time here, and grateful that you reached out, and happy to share a little perspective from this side of the ocean.
Well, thanks so much, Brian. He said, why don't we talk to Dave and Robin? It was a perfect idea. Thanks for giving us this on-the-ground viewpoint, Dave. It's invaluable. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful time, safe trip. All the best to Robin and the kids, and enjoy the rest of the games.
You bet. All the best to you guys as well. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Dave Olden joining us from Paris, France. We're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, before we jump to break, I have to have two corrections. Number one, wrong year for the Stinger Championship in Edmonton. It was 2021. That's number one. And number two, we had the wrong phone number for Brody, so we're calling him, and he will be with us in the next segment. So thanks so much for joining us here on the Basketball Show on Sports 1440, and we will be right back. Welcome back to the Basketball Show. I'll tell you what, it took every fiber of my being not to be up dancing to Kool and the Gang. Celebrate one of my favorite songs. Great to have you with us here on this beautiful Saturday morning on the Basketball Show. Brian and Donovan with me today. And I'd like to welcome in Brody Clark from the Edmonton Stingers. Brody, you know what? It always helps if we dial the right number, doesn't it, to reach you?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I'm glad you reached me.
I'm glad we were able to reach you, Brody, because I was flattering you about your contribution over the last 10 years, and I meant every word of it. It wasn't flattery. It was just strictly gratitude for all that you've done in the community over the last 10 years with the Golden Bears, being such an important part of the Edmonton Stingers' development in our community. But now you're getting ready after the playoffs, and we'll talk playoffs. Actually, let's talk playoffs first, then we'll talk about the next chapter. Okay. You play the Calgary Surge. You guys dominated the Surge twice in Calgary, and then got dominated twice here in Edmonton. What are your thoughts as you approach the playoff game tomorrow at Expo?
Yeah, I mean, our thoughts are that we owe them a little bit. I think that there's a bit of a bitter taste in our mouth from the last time that we got to play against them on our home court. And for us, we're kind of looking at it as an opportunity for revenge, and obviously an opportunity for us to send a message to the rest of the league as we, get kicked off for hopefully another championship run. So we're super dialed in. We've had a few good practices this week, and I think guys are, bringing good energy and focus. And so it's just, we just want that ball to get thrown up in the air so that we can get going and play.
Well, it really is an opportunity, isn't it, for a bit of revenge? And I appreciate everything that you were just saying, Brody, that you have a little bit of salt in the wound and you want to go out there and get after it tomorrow. Talk about the evolution of the Edmonton Stingers and the CEBL over your career. You've been here since day one as the university player. You've had your opportunity to play overseas. But what are your reflections now that you look back on where we were in 2019 and where we are today with the Stinger organization and with the CEBL?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think, you look back to the 2019 summer and you can think about some of those games in the Expo Center with the old reddish orange seats, and the court was kind of in a different location, and some games were decently loud in there. Some games you weren't sure if people even knew the Stingers existed. To come to, this year we sold out multiple games, and we've got, fans who are multi-year season seat holders coming up and telling us how important it is to them to have basketball at our level in their city. And you got fans driving from Edson to watch games, and it's just incredible to see the growth. I mean, it's really, I think, important for youth basketball players in the city to have their eyes on a product like ours at a young age. I mean, growing up in Toronto, I got to watch the Raptors my whole life, and I know the impact that had on me. Now, not saying that we're in the NBA, but to be able to look at professional basketball and see a direct path of like, that's something I want to do one day, and there's a legit opportunity for me to do it in my home country. I think that's a really big deal. And so the fact that it's succeeding and the fact that it continues to grow, and you've got fan bases like Winnipeg, bringing in 10,000 people a game, and us selling out arenas multiple times during the season, and across the board, things are just getting more and more exciting and popular. It's a big deal, and it's pretty cool to be a part of.
I'm talking to Brody Clark from the Edmonton Stingers, former U of A Golden Bear, here on the Basketball Show. I think, Brody, I think the pivotal moment for me, or like the special moment for me, was literally last week, or this past game, where you're playing Winnipeg, and I'm looking around the arena from being down on the court and having the opportunity to broadcast the game, and seeing every seat filled, seeing the mezzanine, many people deep, packed around, and to have what I would call an electric playoff, what you would expect to be playoff atmosphere. And I've heard a lot of great crowds at the Expo Center for the Stingers. I've never heard a crowd like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome. I think every time we have a big game and we manage to sell that thing out, the crowd's pretty good, but that was definitely another level. I feel like everybody has been following along pretty intensely this year, and knows, that we got not only a good shot, but they're aware of where everything is in the standings and how things are possibly shaking out. And so it seemed like everybody had the same thoughts on their mind going into that last game, and came with a bunch of energy. And it was just super cool to be a part of. I mean, like you said, I've been here for 10 years now, and we got decent crowds at the U of A, and I think that they're, increasingly better as the years went along. And then just to see the dedication that sports fans in this city have to their professional teams, right? Like, now you got massive crowds at the Stingers games. Everybody knows what's going on. They're cheering at the right things. They're completely dialed in. There's, hundreds and hundreds of fans with their kids coming down to the court after the game to get autographs. It's just an incredible community to be a part of. So,
and you're dumping us like a bad habit. I'm sorry, I had to say that. Brody Clark joining me on the Basketball Show. So, Brody, let's talk about the next chapter. You've given 10 years of your life to Edmonton, and now it's time to go home. I think that's a fair. We had a conversation at an event over at Expo. And I left there, and that was kind of the feeling that I got from that, is that it's time to be around family. It's time to get to take the next jump in your career. Tell everybody what you're going to be doing, and what the next years look like for Brody Clark.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, I'll say, I just can't thank the Edmonton basketball community enough for embracing me over the past 10 years. I mean, the development I've got to see over those years in my own basketball game, but also just getting to grow up into a person from a 18-year-old kid into a 28-year-old now, just having a different perspective on life as a result of, the experiences I've had in Edmonton, and being a part of this community is going to be something that stays with me forever. And it's changed me for the better. I'll always say choosing U of A was the best decision I ever made. Can't say that I'll ever change my mind on that. So massive shout out to the Edmonton community for just embracing me and accepting me over these years. And yeah, my thing is, look, I've always been really, not only interested in my academics, but interested in them because I'm genuinely curious about that subject matter. And so I studied civil engineering in school. I've always been really fascinated by the built environment. I wanted to build structures and towers and bridges my whole life. And I thought that I wanted to do it as an engineer. It turns out I'm a little bit more interested in being a real estate developer, and I want to kind of do things on the ownership and the sort of the business side of the coin, as it were. I did my MBA after completing my civil engineering degree, and learned a lot about, just the world of commercial real estate, what it means to be a developer, and how to kind of conduct the analysis to see if a project might be financially feasible. And that's something I'm passionate about. And so I'm actually currently applying for a whole bunch of jobs out in Toronto to be an analyst with developers, and just kind of work my way up from there. And I see a long career for me in that, and it's something I've been excited about for a while. And so as much as basketball has been center stage for me for the majority of my life to date, I've always had bigger plans than just, doing this forever. So it's the right time now. So it's bittersweet, to say the least, but I don't know. It's going to be a big change for me, and I'm kind of just excited to really be able to bear down and focus on these last 3 games, hopefully with the Stingers, come out of here with the championship, and then be ready to move on.
Great way to look at it, Brody. And you were talking about being embraced and accepted. You're embraceable and acceptable, believe me. And
I appreciate that.
You've contributed, so much that goes not just what's on the court, Brody, but the way you conduct yourself on the court, the way you conduct yourself off the court, the way you've been such a willing and generous giver to the community. So we can't thank you enough. But to your last statement, there's a lot of business to be taken care of yet. There's basketball to be played. So we look forward to watching you and your teammates tomorrow as you square off against our rivals from the South. And we're going to be hoping against hope for a victory and watch you guys head out to Montreal next week. So Brody Clark, Edmontonian, you're an honorary Edmontonian for life. Thanks so much for all, and best of luck in the game tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks for embracing me, and let's go get a win tomorrow.
Let's go get a W. Brody Clark, leader, star player, having what I consider, Brian, to be maybe his best season as a CEBL player for the Stingers this year. Brody just has been just such a tremendous part of our community.
Yeah, he has become the all-time leading Stinger scorer, I believe, right? So that's kind of a cool. And I think second place is, oh man, I don't think second place is. I can't remember who it is, but they're not with the team anymore anyway. So there's no risk of him being caught for a little while. So he's got the legacy of the franchise, kind of, really. And I mean, obviously Xavier Moon is one thing, but Brody's been here for the 6 years now, and it's really cool. I remember I first met Brody. This is going back so far. I was with the Edmonton Sun at the time, so that's about 8 lifetimes ago for me. But I met him when he came here in the summer before his first year. Just like even then when he was 18, I guess, he left an incredible impression for someone that young, and just like not only that you could tell he had it all together, and he, was very mature and had his goals of that too, but also just a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. Like when you have a person of that quality who's willing to do so much more than play basketball, and is a giver as well as a receiver, as a contributor as well as someone who embraced the community. Brody's been great for the community, and he will sorely be missed. So one more reminder, everybody, tomorrow, 6 p.m. at the Expo Center, Hall D. If you are interested, make sure you're checking into tickets right now. If there are any available, I sense that they are not, but regardless, that's worth the effort. And if you can't check it out live in person, make sure you turn on TSN, because it will be broadcast tomorrow as well. We're going to do one more segment and wrap up. Hopefully, we may even have some clarity on what's going on with the women's 3x3 team and where they might be playing. So we'll take a break right now and wrap this session of the basketball show up right after these messages. Welcome back to the basketball show. Brian, did you ever think DJ Khaled would be on my program?
I could tell some funny stories here right now, but I know we got a lot to get to. So no, actually, first off, no, I did not. And number two, let's just roll on because I'm going to get off on a tangent here. I know we got a lot of housekeeping to do.
We got a lot of housekeeping.
Yeah.
First bit of housekeeping that we'll get to is the poll update.
Yes, we've had a nice number of responses this morning. Thanks for everybody who's voiced your opinion on Twitter at @basketball_show. Of course, we were asking where will the Canadian men's basketball team finish at the 2024 Olympics. Would you believe, Paul, the most popular response is gold. 34.5% have said gold, 31% say silver, 21% bronze, and then 10% are saying no medal. So almost everyone thinks Canada's going to win a medal, and the most popular answer is gold. So there you go. A lot of confidence. I'm sure there's some homerism in there, but hey, Dave, I thought Dave, when we were talking to him a couple segments ago, outlined it pretty good. This is a team that they've given you legit reason to believe.
They really have. It would not be a shock if they beat the Americans. To me, again, the odds are heavily favored with the Americans. They are a juggernaut in terms of top to bottom talent. But that's the thing. It's the talent that they have and the type of talent that Canada has. And I think Canada has, Brian, the perfect blend of NBA, the highest level of talent in the world in Gilgeous-Alexander. And even though Jamal Murray has not been a factor in this, and we don't exactly know the reasons why, but RJ Barrett stepping up. Dylan Brooks just seems to be absolutely made for FIBA basketball. He's just, and Dort and his defense. I mean, they've had tremendous individual performances and team performances. So impressed with Coach Jordi Fernandez and the way he has gotten this team to play as a unit. Very, very impressive. If you have any texts you want to send in this last segment, it's 833-401-1440. Before we go any further, I have to give a shout out to our community superstars, the Edmonton Basketball Officials Association, the Premier Basketball Officials Association. Matt Callio from Edmonton is in the Olympics right now, officiating in the men's basketball. Karen Lasuka, you see at many of the Stingers game, officiated in the women's Olympics. They just produce great officials, and they have a great organization. Wheelchair Sports Alberta, the Africa Center, Fresh Nets Foundation, the Edmonton Basketball Association. Such tremendous supporters of basketball in our community, do so much of the work. And, you know, whenever you talk about being able to provide young people in particular, but all people with opportunities to play, somebody's got to do the work. Somebody's got to walk the walk. And whether it's the EBA, Fresh Nets, Africa Center, Wheelchair Sports Alberta, EBOA, they're doing the work. And I'm going to give one other shout out as well, and that's to the Hoop City organizers, Due North, the 3x3 Basketball Association, and the Edmonton Sport Council, Sport Edmonton rather. And we're out in the community right now putting up new nets, new backboards, new rims, so that all community league baskets, over 400 of them, will have at least a new net, if not a new backboard and rim. Doing the work, that's what it takes to provide the best opportunities in our community, and we have some of the greatest right here in our home city. All right, let's talk about what the situation looks like right now, Brian.
We have breaking news, Paul.
Okay, let's do it.
The semifinals have been confirmed, so it's actually going to be Canada versus not semifinals, quarterfinals. Canada versus Australia at 1:30 our time.
Wow.
So Canada will face Australia in one of the play-in games, and the other play-in game, it'll be United States, China, and the winners of those games will join Spain and Germany in the semifinal round. So, I mean, this is going to be good.
Well, you know, you were talking about before we went on that it seemed to be a strong possibility that it might be China versus Canada.
It looked like it was China, but the way the tiebreakers have fallen, it ends up being Australia.
This is going to be very interesting because Canada handled Australia in the first game of the tournament handily. Mm-hmm. Australia beat Canada twice to qualify. Australia was built to play Canada. That's how they built their team. They're beatable, but they're also dangerous. Australia is a very dangerous team. They have a tremendous basketball culture. They love to compete and get after it. So it's going to be a great game. So that's 1:30 today. I would probably say CBC Gem.
CBC Gem, I wouldn't be surprised if they show that. If not live, it'll probably be on delay shortly after on one of the networks, either CBC or TSN. But yeah, you can catch that live on CBC Gem at 1:30. So I mean, they only got off the court about an hour and a half ago, and they'll be heading back on in about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cruel sport, like we talked about before. So best of luck to Michelle, Catherine, Paige, and Casey as they face off against a tough Australian team to go on to the medal round. So this is cool that we were able to get that information before the end of the show today. So I'm going to go to you, Donovan. You've been such a diligent guy handling some of the issues that we've had today that have faced you, and thank you so much. You got Dave on WhatsApp over in Paris. You've kind of been, like we were talking about, you've been juggling chainsaws over there today. Donovan, you're watching the Olympics. What are your reflections of the basketball and the Olympics so far as it relates to the Canadian team's performances?
Well, I think in a lot of respects, with respect to the men in particular, I think they've done a hell of a job. They've obviously, Shea's been putting up points. Shea's been having a good time over there. I like watching the men's, and then the 3x3. We're gonna see. They're gonna get a chance to play. They're gonna get a chance to continue on. We'll see how it goes for them. I mean, they've had their ups and downs. I think it's been fair to say that it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride for the ladies 3x3 team. But I don't know. It's been fun to watch regardless, and we'll see how they do. I like the men's chances probably the most.
Fair. I think everybody's feeling pretty darn good. The thing about the thing that's been impressive, and Dave Oldham actually made a good point on this, is the Canadian men's team they've had to win some tough games. All 3 games that they've played have been challenging. So they're not going into this not being tested. This isn't kind of where you're dealing with 1 or 2 blowouts. This is a team that's been tested. And that's an interesting thing, Brian. I think as you talk about the potential, and there's a lot of basketball to be played yet, especially if Canada is going to go against home team France coming up. I think Canada is clearly the favorite, but you're dealing with the home team having wanting to have a special day. But if they match up against the Americans really haven't been tested. And it's not been the dream team, Brian, where they just run lineups in and roll over everybody, but it's been, I would say, a much easier road than it has been for the Canadians.
Yeah, you could say, is it easy because they're just that much better, or have they just had has the level of competition they faced been not to the degree of the Canada has had to play? We were talking before we went on the air, Paul, about how the Canada's group was billed as the group of death coming into this. Do you think? I'm trying to phrase this right here. Do you think Canada would have looked? Do you think Canada's opponents played to the level that you would have expected them to play to going into this? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. Overall, yes. I thought that. When I first started watching Canada play, and I'll talk about the first game against Giannis in Greece, I thought, this is a game Canada should win by 20. I thought that's a team that's good. Greece is very good, very well coached, very cohesive. But I thought that's a game they should win by 20 because Giannis is the only guy who really is at the physical ability of most of the top Canadian players. The other guys are great European international style players. That international style of play is so wonderful for me because it's a great equalizer. I still, like I've said many times, Brian, the NBA is built for entertainment. FIBA is built for basketball. And so I think that you equalize thing when you can use more strategy and skill as opposed to athletic ability, and you can plug the paint up. So, I thought Greece, they played them tough. I thought Spain was tighter than I thought they would be as well. Mm-hmm. Australia, and they were good. And it was a much closer game than the final score even indicated. So all games really were under 5-point games, in fact. How about yourself? Did you feel they were up to what you thought they might be?
Didn't really know what to expect. I'm kind of, I won't say I'm shocked or anything, but I'm pretty pleasantly surprised that they're 3-0. We talked a lot about, especially after they announced their roster at the beginning of July, Paul. So the last few weeks we've talked a lot and expressed our concerns, I think all of us, about their lack of size. Concern. I thought that they could really be exploited in that degree, and that hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't.
And maybe that's just been the matchup so far. I don't know, but I think Dwight Powell has been
great.
Kem Birch has been a nice surprise. Dwight Powell, we knew Dwight Powell would get a lot of minutes just because of, there weren't any other options, but he's played better than I thought he would. So, I mean, that hasn't really hurt them. And another thing we were talking about too, Paul, off air, is the fact that Jamal Murray has 17 points for the first 3 games. Now, that's one thing that if we had said that before the game started last weekend, Jamal Murray's going to score 17 points in the next 3 games, I don't think we would have thought this team would be 3-0 with getting virtually next to nothing from Jamal Murray.
I agree with that. As I was listening to your remarks, I was formulating my thoughts, and here's how I see it. We were concerned, and if you had to rely on post play for a lot of offense, you would be concerned. They don't have to, because what has evolved has been the outstanding play as expected from Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but the consistency from R.J. Barrett. Dylan Brooks he shoots the 3. He's just out of his mind. I hate to say it this way, but you wait for him to come down to earth. But I don't know that he will, because he was like this last year as well. He becomes Superman when he puts on the Canadian jersey. He really does. And then you look at the defensive prowess of Dort. Dort in this environment has just been outstanding. So I think the way that Fernandez has coached the team, you've got the best of the NBA, particularly offensively, out of Barrett and Gilgeous-Alexander, with really good FIBA-style players around them. So they've been able to hit a really interesting balance. So 3-0, I'm not shocked, but I'm curious now. 3-0 in pool play is not quarterfinals, semis, and finals. Everything goes up another notch. Jokic and his team are very dangerous. That's a very dangerous team as they've gone through this. Americans are clearly the most ability. I'd say Canada is second in terms of overall personnel ability. And then you got all these KG, tough, hard-nosed, Euro-style, FIBA-style players that are on the various teams.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think you're right, Paul. Like you were saying, offensively, their lack of size hasn't hurt them. They've figured out a way, and like you said, within the context of FIBA, it suited them very well. When they run into, say, if they have to play Jokic in Serbia, how do they match up against him? And does it really matter? I mean, can they just let him go crazy and then worry about everybody else? And that would be enough. Because I think one thing that we have seen is that it's a fairly complete team, right?
It is a complete team.
Yeah, but both on both ends of the floor. And that bodes well. That's what really encouraged me. The last time Canada was in the Olympics, they didn't win their group too, but that was with Steve Nash playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
And then when they ran into France in the quarterfinals, and Steve Nash didn't play out of his mind in that one game, that was it.
Right.
I think we can look at this and say, well, I mean, I got to think Jamal Murray's going to have a game yet, right? But if maybe RJ or whoever, Shea, some Brooks maybe has a bit of an off night, that isn't necessarily going to sink their ship.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. They're much more of a complete team, and they can beat you a multitude of ways. I really thought it was all going to rise and fall on Gilgeous-Alexander, and I was dead wrong on that. And that's encouraging going into the quarterfinals. So let's hope that the women's team can pick it up and find a way to beat Nigeria by enough points and be able to continue on. I think that'd be a big disappointment if they don't. If they don't move forward, I think that will be a disappointment, but not catastrophic. And then, of course, back to 3x3, fingers crossed for the home team. We're going to wrap things up this week. We're going to have a bit of a different schedule moving forward. We're only going to be on 1 hour the next 2 weekends to do a summary of the Olympics and also the CEBL. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. And as I always try to close, in memory of my son, Ben, who we lost as a family a number of months ago, please treat each other with great kindness. Tell those that you love them that you do love them. You can never say that often enough. And always remember, you don't know what people are going through, so look for the best in others every opportunity that you get. This has been the Basketball Show. Thanks so much to Donovan and Brian today. Everyone, enjoy the Olympics. Have a great weekend on and off the court. You've been listening to the Basketball Show on Sports 1440.